everybody, and welcome to, I guess this is kind of like a podcast version of a cheesy rants about comics. I'm your host right now, Cheesy Manfredo, aka Alfredo Morales, and with me today is Jess. You can say hi, Jess.
Hi, I'm Jess.
Word, awesome. And today we're going to talk about. Today is Wednesday the 9th, and it's a new comic book day. And today also drops the first issue of the Marvel published Ultraman, the Rise of Ultraman, which is big because this is a big Japanese superhero property. Published, I don't think this is the first time it was published in America. It probably might be like the second or third time there was like an American Ultraman comic, but now this is big because we haven't seen something like this in a very long time.
It is kind of a big deal to have it be done by Marvel, though, I think.
Yeah, it is because you'd think it'd be someone like maybe like one of the other publishers who specialize in like other properties like IDW or Boom Studios.
Yeah,
right?
Boom Studios is one I would think because they leap on the licensed properties left and right. They go for it. Oni Studios too, maybe, but. Or is it Oni Studios or just Oni? Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter.
Oni Press.
Oni Press, thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, there's some you suspect from IDW or Boom Studios, but it's a Marvel, and that's pretty interesting. That was like probably one of the biggest news, and probably gives a little insight to what kind of story this is because it's basically like a reboot. It's like its own thing almost, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not a super big Ultraman person. I've just never gotten into it. I'm a fan of like a lot of Toko things, of like Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, the Japanese equivalent of Power Rangers, which I'm slipping on the name of
Super
right now.
Sentai.
Super Sentai, yeah. But I always forget they have specific names for each season, and I always fluff them up.
Yeah, it's always Something Sentai, Something Rangers is usually the names how they do it. But that being said, I'm here to kind of like I guess cover that slack because I did watch the complete original Ultraman series. I have that on DVD. I seen like half of Ultra 7, which is like the sequel series. You know anything about Japanese superheroes, every season there's a new, instead of like it being the same hero, they kind of have a new person taking the mantle with their own like gimmick, like that's how if you know anything about Power Rangers, majority of Toku superheroes like work like that. But this doesn't feel like it. This doesn't feel like that. This is literally like it's the Ultraman name. This isn't like Ultra so and so or Ultra 7. No, they're doing like just the Rise of Ultraman. And reading it feels like they're doing the thing where I guess like maybe the original Ultraman happened and this is like current. This is like 2020 now. And now we're following like a new group of people and who assume is going to eventually take the mantle of Ultraman because he shares the same name as the original Ultraman, which I thought was kind of interesting. I guess we should before we go more into plot, we should go in depth on our first impressions. What do you think, Jess?
So I read it once. I liked it, and I thought about it a bit. And I still like it. I don't think it's bad. There's some interesting, just like ideas going on here that feel similar to other things. So, I don't know what Ultraman's really like. So I don't know what kind of organizations go on in there, what's normal there. This gives me, from my viewpoint, it gives me a very Men in Black feel. It gives me very specifically a Men in Black International feel. Mostly because it looks like the two main characters in the story were both recruited because they kind of discovered the technology before the people that wanted them to discover it. They found it. And that's like a big plot point of like MIB International. So it feels kind of funny that they do that. So it feels kind of familiar in that sense. I think it's pretty cool. This first issue felt like a lot of setup. And
Yeah.
so someone coming outside of the franchise, the first page where it's like this event happens in 1966, and then they never mention it again, feels like the
Yeah.
whole time we're waiting, and it gets maybe loosely mentioned later. And the whole time it's set up, it's set up, it's set up, and it's fine. And I like it. It's not bad. The art throughout is
I
pretty enjoyable and stuff, but that's basically where I sit right now. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's a good first issue. The backups were great in this issue, and the little side things were pretty good.
mhm.
So, that's my
I
first impression.
I was very like, I'm the kind of guy who doesn't I hold high value for issue ones, chapter ones. I think those are like incredibly important because you basically, like, in my eyes, you should probably establish the most important thing in your series within issue one, right? And
Mhm.
we tend to not. I feel like we like this kind of reminds me a little bit of when they rebooted the TMNT and IDW. They started slow. Like the first issue was like a lot of setup like this, and then second issue was a little bit more setup until like the fourth issue was kind of like when they had the complete TMN team together, right? And I think and I feel like that's probably the direction this Ultraman book is going for. But I kind of don't like that. That's like something that bothers me about more kind of like American comics. There's a little I
Yeah.
kind of want a little bit more bang for my buck, if you get me. And I mean, they seem to want to give us more bang too with all the little like the little back issues that they have in here, which are seem to be specifically aimed to like appeal to fans, like hardcore Ultraman fans, because there's a story called Ultra Q, and if you know anything about Ultra Q is the series that predates Ultraman, and it's like Ultraman is the successor of Ultra Q, which is more of a Twilight Zone science fiction anthology series with a bunch of aliens who would eventually show up in Ultraman, and and here they kind of like they kind of do the thing where it's like they're probably gonna like encounter different Ultra Q like aliens and whatnot, with this like little team that they establish in the back issues, and they also have this little like they have this little chibi Pigmon, who's another like fan favorite Ultraman kaiju, doing these like cutesy little comics in the back drawn by Gurihiru, who I love. That being said, yeah, like I'm not. I think this first issue of Rise of Ultraman kind of like doesn't grab me. Like I'll get issue two to see if issue two might like sell the idea more on me, but issue one just isn't doing that for me. It feels very like confusing almost because when the story starts, like after the little like the story literally starts with them like recreating like the first few scenes of the first episode of Ultraman, where like in the original Ultraman, a pilot for the Science Patrol, that's what they were called back in like in Ultraman. The Science Patrol was like this kind of like agency that handled like supernatural like events and anything like science fiction related. And one of their members is secretly Ultraman, which is Shin Hayata, right? But here in this like in Rise of Ultraman, they kind of switch that that they recreate the Ultraman origins, but it seems like the person who instead of it being Shin Hayata, it's Dan Moriboshi, who is actually Ultra 7, but I guess they replaced him as Ultraman in here. And it seems like they're going to eventually get to Ultra 7, which is the sequel series of Ultraman, because at the end of this issue, we see a glimpse of Ultraman fighting against Ultra 7. And it's like, oh, so Ultra 7 is probably going to eventually show up. Because Ultra 7 is like a big, it's a fan favorite. Like a lot of people like Ultra 7 more than Ultraman. But it's making me like I kind of don't like how we have a character we follow, and then like in the middle of the story a new character shows up, and it's like, oh, they're friends and whatnot, and they like both could have been qualified to part of the secret kaiju Men in Black, and that's like another thing. It's like what's a kaiju in this like book, right?
Yeah, the definition seems weird. It seems they're just using it as monster. Like it's like, and that
I
feels a little
mean,
weird because they're using
if
it
we
as
want
like,
to if I want to be technical, big like back in the day, like we weren't kaiju fans wouldn't call them kaijus, would call them dai kaijus, which is like the correct terminology because dai kaiju means giant monster and kaiju
mm-hmm.
I think just means monster, right? But then Pacific Rim came out and just used kaiju because I admit it's more catchy than dai kaiju. Um, but here like a kaiju shows up and it's I recognize the kaiju. It's a Tesladon from the original Ultraman, but he's like just a little bit bigger than a human. So it's like, is this a kaiju? Like, what is a kaiju here? Because they mentioned only like a little bit of it being like, oh, they're like interdimensional, right? Like they just kind of
Mm-hmm.
show up and warp reality around themselves, and it's like that.
Yeah.
I guess that sounds pretty cool, but then like, if they're just gonna be like an Ultraman kaiju but smaller, it's like, is Ultraman gonna be huge in this series? Is
I
he
think
actually?
I think
Or,
he will. I think it's just a baby kaiju because the
mm,
Ultramen that we do see in the series are both really big. I have a feeling it's gonna be. I have a feeling it's gonna get big. I do.
right.
I think they're just not going out of their way to explain it, which is um, good and not good. You know, I mean, it's not good
It's
for like fans of the show who might be confused and then subsequently disappointed, and then think, "I'm not going to buy another issue of this." But
right.
it might be good at roping in people to get used to the idea, because there might be maybe, I don't know, in the West there's some negative connotations around giant monster fighting, even though there shouldn't be, because so much Western comics deals with essentially
I
that
mean,
idea.
yeah, it's a lot of it's like in its lifeblood almost.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, but it's like I don't know. Like as I was saying earlier, like what's the most important thing about the Rise of Ultraman? Is it like this narrative they're doing? Like what's like like what are we looking forward to in this book? I guess like they kind of set up that there's like this mystery that happened because they don't like even though like our main character, what's her name, like Kiki, right? Or
Yeah, I believe so.
yeah, I think her name's like Kiki. She what like she joins like the secret Men in Black thing, which is just like a modern interpretation of the Science Patrol from the original Ultraman, which like makes sense. I mean, like if you want to like kind of like do a one for one modern translation of the Science Patrol, you just turn them into Men in Black because they were already kind of that, right?
Hmm. So now they're very overtly secret in this interpretation.
right. If you
Um,
also their headquarters kind of reminds me of something like at a Shield, almost. It gives me a lot of Shield vibes.
I feel that.
Yeah, which is like I mean Marvel comics, and they have a statue dedicated to Dan Moroboshi, which is how I mentioned earlier. He was Ultra Seven, but it seems like in this retelling they made him to be Ultraman, and it's like where are they going with this, right?
Hmm.
It's so
And also the fact that they like deliberately hide some backstory too is a little frustrating. So I remember my first time reading those first two pages, seeing that 1966 stuff, and then immediately jumping to 2020.
yeah.
You know,
It's
and
like this. It's like a mystery,
yeah, but it's also
but that
at a
just
point
is
it's
like
not good.
right. It's like okay, so I think a good example of okay, I just had this idea. I think what they're probably gonna do is that in this like reboot, the original Ultraman was Ultra Seven, and now the current 2020 Ultraman is just gonna be the original Ultraman because like it's the original Ultraman and all the promo art. So it's like they
Hmm.
literally like reversed it, right? Which is I mean, as long as like the book is like good, it doesn't I don't really care too much. It's interesting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll see where that goes. But like, I think a good example of like a story where they like give you like this little like kind of like bigger thing that they're gonna play with, and then they go on to like develop like who our characters are. Is probably like, have you ever read part one of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
Yes, I love. I'm still working my way through JoJo. Unlike a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fans who see, and maybe it's because the later parts of JoJo are just that great. I was sold on JoJo Part One like
Mm-hmm.
immediately. Like the first episode even had me sold on JoJo. So like I don't know,
That's
I loved it.
no, no, I get you. What I was gonna say is that so in JoJo, like the first scene is the mask, like the mask that turns you. I guess spoilers for JoJo, but like we see like the origins of like the Dio Brando's family and his like crossing with the Joestar's
Mm-hmm.
family, and then we see like our first glimpse of the mask, right? And then we
Mm-hmm.
don't, and then later we cut to, I guess the current timeline with JoJo, and that is just about his relationship with Dio, right? And that's like kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the core of the series is their relationship, really, right?
Yeah.
And then the mask like comes back into play, right? And I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're kind of trying to do a similar thing where it's like they start out with this like this is going to be the big grand mystery in the background, but the real meat is going to be the relationship between I think Kiki and Shin Hayata, who might just be the actual main character, right? Even though we start the story with Kiki and then she kind of gets like shafted almost.
Yeah,
Not shafted, but she's just kind of there in the background.
that felt really weird because we spend the whole story with Kiki, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
we see Shen for a bit, but then at the end, Shen's just like getting touched by Ultraman, and like it looks like he's gonna get the Ultraman powers or whatever. It
Right.
feels very weird because of how much time we spent specifically on her. I feel
Right.
like there has to be something else coming up. I can't think they 100% sideline her. I think she's going to be valuable in other ways.
She
She's very technically oriented,
like
and there's a big theme of secrecy going on in this book too.
right.
You know, they won't tell her how things work. They won't talk about the past.
Even though she's already part of like this Men in Black organization, they still
Yeah,
won't tell her all the secrets. And I think the mistake was that they put her in already. Maybe what should have happened was that because when Shin shows up, him like they imply a lot of things. Like they imply that like Kiki and Shin probably developed technology to track down kaiju's, and that's what caught the organization's attention, right?
hmm
Maybe the story should have started out with Kiki and Shin being like makeshift kaiju hunters, and then they find out that there's actually a whole Men in Black type organization to this, and then they get involved, and that's when like because of all that, they got caught up with like the Ultraman powers, right?
yeah. I
Because
I think that would have been a more interesting starting point too, because at least then we kind of would have got.
because it's like because we learn about this whole secret organization and all the crazy stuff that happens along with these characters, and then we could see their relationship develop. Like their relationship is going to be the crux of the whole series. As
Mhm.
it seems to be that way, but instead it's kind of like we get thrown into a lot of things. Like I feel like we get a lot of things, but at the same time I feel like we don't get enough because it's like, oh, Kiki's part of this Men in Black. Also, she's suddenly thrown into this mission where there's like a kaiju shows up. Oh, also Kiki has his former friend named Shin who didn't get to join the Men in Black because they didn't like him, even though it seems like he's qualified enough. Um, and
Yeah,
they
and
and then the red Ultraman Marvel orb shows up, and it's like, and then it stops, and it's like, what? Like, I don't feel like there was enough going on for this book.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree. Like, I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
big flaws of the way books are being published in the American comics market is that
Mm-hmm.
like it doesn't. I mean, there's two problems. One, it's hard to jump in mid arcs, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard and it's too like decompressed. The story's paced in a weird way where each issue doesn't feel like a punch. It doesn't feel like there's value in each issue.
Right.
And then another thing, I want to go back to the point you made about how she just gets thrown into this mission. Like the book goes out of its way to be like, listen, you can't be doing this stuff. You're too fresh. You can't just be quiet and sit down. And then immediately another guy is like, doesn't matter. You're coming with me.
Yeah,
and
it's
then,
like they don't want to tell her all. They don't want to tell her all the secrets, but at the same time, they're already throwing her in all the secret missions. And it's like
breaking their own rules to do it. It's like,
right.
It's like, it's the rule for me to do it. And it's like, doesn't matter. You're coming with me. Like,
and it's
what?
And they also do this frustrating thing where they like they'll have like the text box saying what this technology or thing is, but they'll have like the text scratched out because it's like classified, right? But it's like that's just like frustrating. That's like what do you mean it's classified? Our main character is already part of the secret Super Men in Black group, right? It's like
it's like they're trying to build interest, but they're doing it the wrong way.
I mean, I feel like issue 2 could probably save a lot of these problems, right? Like maybe the next issue, that's when it gets like, I feel like that's how far they go. If the next issue doesn't grab me, I'm not gonna like keep reading, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I do think it's kind of weird that, and this might just be a production thing because, maybe when this was originally slated to be done, it was going to be under a shorter time frame or something. So they did the front end and the back end, 2 separate plots to differentiate artists. So it'd be like more achievable. But I think it's kind of telling that the backup has this arc of like the science organization being infiltrated. And I feel like that's got to be really important to the overall story. And it's relegated to the backup, which feels kind of like weird.
Did you think that the Ultra Q backup is gonna tie into the main Ultraman story?
It feels too It feels like too big of a nugget to not.
I mean,
I can't. I don't. Maybe it won't, but
I thought it was too I thought it was gonna be 2 different stories, but I mean, I could see
it might be. It just felt too important, I don't know.
Like, I mean, I could see that because they throw a lot of like interesting things in that Ultra Q story. Also, it looks really good. I really like how it looks.
Yeah, same. Agreed.
I was thinking back to, because if anyone, this is going to be posted on the Cheesy Cast channel, and if you're on the Cheesy Cast channel right now, there's I interview Matt Frank, who does Redman, another superhero under the Subaraya name, which is the same company that owns Ultraman, and he was telling me how with the Redman book they gave him a lot of freedom because Redman is like he's not a Batman, like Ultraman would be like the Superman of Subaraya, right? And Redman would be like the Creeper, the Question, like a smaller DC superhero, right? That's what Redman is. So like he got a lot of freedom making that book. While this one, Ultraman, maybe there is some like Subaraya meddling, right? Because it's so I think. If I want to go back, I mentioned earlier how Ultra 7 was like kind of more popular than Ultraman, and I think the reason why is in Ultraman, like it was very episodic, and our main character was like already like a goody two shoes, like he really didn't have a personality, right? But in Ultra 7. Which is kind of interesting because in Ultraman, Shin Hayata is this guy who works for the Science Patrol, and then he's accidentally killed by Ultraman's ship. So Ultraman like revives him, but like the whole reviving function like is this weird thing where like not like the only way like Shin Hayata could live is that like he now is like embedded with Ultraman himself. So they like switch back and forth whenever there's like a kaiju to fight, right? Meanwhile, in Ultra 7, the Ultra 7 is Dan Moroboshi, who's who isn't a human. He's actually is an alien. He's actually like an Ultraman alien disguised as a human, because he's like trying to learn more about humanity, right? So it's like he's like this fresh out of water guy, and he's trying to understand like the planet, specifically just Japan, but and he's part of like his own. He's part of his own. The name of the organization in Ultra 7, like in Ultraman, it's like Science Patrol, and so is the name of the organization in the Rise of Ultraman in this comic. But in Ultra 7, the organization is called the Ultra Garrisons, and they don't mention the Ultra Garrisons in this book, even though like in the panel where they show the inside of the Science Patrol base, the statue of Dan Moroboshi, like I recognize that he's wearing the Ultra Garrison outfit. So maybe they'll mention the Ultra Garrisons. I don't know. Or maybe that's like part of the mystery. Like there's so many things like I'm kind of like wondering like where is this all going to, And also another thing that I was thinking was like if like we're doing like if they're doing like a whole new telling of Ultraman, maybe they should have gone with a different Ultraman design. Maybe they should have made their own cool Marvel Ultraman design instead of like just sticking with the original like design that's been around since the 50s. I mean, Super Aya like just loves like keeping like old designs. They don't really like change older designs, which I mean I feel like fans love too because of like fan service. But like the story just feels so different. Like why not just make a new Ultraman?
Yeah, I mean one reason behind it I think that's valid is that there's a lot of iconography around that design that even like I, as someone not familiar with Ultraman, I recognize that design and it intrigues me. So I think there's a degree of that going on there, which makes good marketing sense.
Yeah, I agree too. Do you know? I'm flipping through the book right now, and there's like this 2-page spread that's like things to come in the Rise of Ultraman, and it's like in between like the short stories in the comic, and I'm looking at this art, and it looks kind of like Matt Frank art almost. But I don't think he did. I don't think he did this. I don't think this is actually Matt Frank. Yeah, I guess.
I remember reading that. I didn't put 2 and 2 together on the art, but I remember that intriguing me a bit, and just I don't know. It was part of what kept me interested in the next book.
Right. Yeah. Also going back to my point about maybe they should have just redesigned Ultraman, make something like new. Like there's that Ultraman manga, which is like a spin-off of the original Ultraman, where he's more like a typical like superhero, but he has like this sick like robot suit design, right? And like maybe they should have done something like that. That probably would have been way better instead of sticking with the original design.
I just googled that for reference, and that is a pretty sick design. I'm not even gonna lie.
It is a pretty sick design. I hear a lot of mixed things about that manga, like.
Although I would say,
yeah,
given like how Marvel art usually is, I think going for the option of having like the old design so that they can basically treat it like a superhero costume where it's skin tight and they can just like not have to worry about costuming outside the head.
Right.
That makes sense for like a Marvel art style a little bit.
It does. I remember when they were showing like the promotional art for this book, it seemed like Ultraman was going to be a little bit more buff. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, cuz that goes back to like all the jokes that you can make about like American superheroes being like super fucking ripped compared to like Ultraman, who's a little bit more lean. He's not like ripped because it's kind of like this weird kind of like wetsuit thing he has on. But yeah, so I guess this is my thoughts. It's issue 2 hopefully is better. I have this on my pull list, but if issue 2 doesn't like grab me, I'm just gonna drop the series and just see around and see what people say about it.
I got 2 things. I guess I'm gonna do this one first because it seems more relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So before I go on to my final thoughts, what do you think about the different Ultraman designs that are like standing in that spread? Like they're standing in the clouds. They
Oh
look
yeah,
like they're
those
kind of
are.
slightly designed differently. Do you
Oh
think
yeah,
those are
those
going to
are.
come into play, or
Um, I
they
mean,
just tease?
if they want to go to the fan service route, like that's the thing. I don't know where this comic is like heading, like because it doesn't seem like Kiki and Shin have some sort of like flaw in their relationship. They just seem to be like really good like buds, even though it seemed like they had some sort of like weird grudges about one getting in and the other not getting in. It doesn't really seem to hang over any of their heads, right? And
Mm-hmm.
those Ultramen, like I mean, I could see them being referenced because those are like later iterations of Ultraman, and like Subaraya does a lot of the thing where they like always just bring back the Ultra family back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those guys might come into play later. Like we they already mentioned Dan Moroboshi, and they show Ultra Seven in that same picture. So if Ultra Seven's gonna show up, they gotta do the other Ultraman. They're probably not gonna have series, but they're gonna probably make appearances. Maybe the mystery is
Okay.
that the whole like Ultraman series did happen, but like something happened where everyone just lost their memories of it or something, right?
Yeah, who knows? Could
Yeah,
go anywhere. All right,
yeah.
I was cool. I was just interested uh,
You
in your
had, you had a,
take there.
yeah, you had a second point, didn't you?
Oh yeah, my last thing was just going to be about my final thoughts on it.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, I pretty much agree with you. Like, so me coming into this, no other real experience with Ultraman.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was pretty good. I'm mostly here for my interest in the IP more so than what was in this particular book.
Mm-hmm.
Although I didn't find it like egregiously bad. It was okay. The biggest flaw is kind of
Yeah.
being set up, right? I like the art. I like the backups. The couple cutesy pages were really fun. So in
It,
general, I'm on board for issue 2. It's a 5-issue mini. So at this
all right.
point, I mean, I'm probably just gonna stick around for the whole thing, regardless. But I mean, if issue 2 takes a really bad turn, who knows? But in general, there's something I never thought in my head I want this to exist, and then it just came about, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh snap, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'm not
I
like super disappointed, but I'm not like super impressed. I guess it's like kind of midland.
there might be. Hey, is it just gonna be a miniseries? I might stick around, depending. Hmm.
Well,
Cause
my
I
knowledge is it's a 1 of 5. Is my knowledge.
word
So
damn. Fuck. I wish
I
Marvel would
could be
start.
wrong.
Hopefully, I like. If it's just 5, I might maybe stick around. I'm thinking about it. It's
But
just so.
we'll see. Because, two's really bad, then why
Yeah, if two.
bother? I noticed
If
the price point on 2, when I looked at it, looked lower, which makes
yeah,
me wonder if,
there's gonna
like,
be
it
less like
won't.
back issues.
Yeah, it probably won't have the backups, which also makes me think more that the backup is kind of important. Like, it's going to tie into whatever this plot is.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
just
mean,
because it's not going to keep going and develop on its own naturally.
yeah. I mean, it. Hopefully it does. I mean, that'd be if they could just find a cool, clever way to tie it all together. That'd be great. It seems like Marvel really wants this book to like to really sell because it's a property that belongs to another company, and like I guess they don't want to seem like like if they could pull this off, maybe Marvel could like start publishing other franchises, right? Um, Maybe a Marvel Common Writer book. Who knows? Um, that being said, I feel like for an Ultraman book, it lacked a lot of the things I love about Ultraman. But coincidentally, on the same day, I pulled from my pull list uh, the Ant-Man miniseries written by Zeb Wells, and this one feels much more like an Ultraman book than Ultraman because there's these giant kaiju bugs that Ant-Man fights, and Ant-Man like becomes like a giant. He basically becomes an Ultraman because he just gets covered in all these bugs until his body becomes huge, right? And then he does battle with like the giant bug kaiju's, right? And
Yeah.
it's more of a silly, it's more of a fun story. Um, kind of gives me, if people have ever read I love the Nick Spencer run of Ant-Man. I think it was really good. Um, and this kind of gives me that vibe almost. I mean, the writing isn't as clever as Nick Spencer, but like the art makes up for a lot of it. A lot of like the moments between characters makes up for a lot of it. And yeah, it just over the progression of the stories, it becomes more and more like kind of like giant kaiju fights and weird monsters, and that's like the stuff I like about Ultraman. And it seems like they didn't deliver with this one, but maybe issue 2 they'll do a better job. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna keep doing this. Um, issue 2 might just not be worth talking about. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right? It's just that as a big Ultraman fan, as a big fan of Toku, as a guy who's like read all the Ultraman series and like gets a majority of these references, who like it seems like this book is like trying to please like new people and the older Ultraman crowd, and it's does an okay job at doing both. You know, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not really like it's not really that it like is a better book for the fans or it's a better book for newbies. I mean, it's very like it's very like newbie friendly, but at the same time, it's like it feels like a lot of other things. It feels like a lot of these ideas were done better in other books, but I guess we'll see. Like, we'll see. Maybe if issue 2 just becomes like more setup, and the real meat is like maybe issue 3 and 4 or 5. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna stick around that long. You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally fair. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, like, it's up to
Yeah.
them to hook people really enough that they care, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
that's what it's
Exactly.
about.
Right. Um. So yeah, I think that's my final thoughts. So if you read The Rise of Ultraman, go to the comment section and tell us what you think. Um, if you like my voice, if you like my opinions, I got more of them on this channel. I talk to all sorts of weirdos. I talk about other Toku things. Me and Jess are gonna eventually release our like podcast channel where we watch every Godzilla movie. That's gonna drop eventually. Is there anything else you want to plug, Jess?
Oh, just saying, I got a Twitter. It's at JadaProg _.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a link somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a link.
There'll be a link in the comments for all of this, and eventually when our watch every Godzilla movie, oh God, podcast drops, um, there'll be a link down there too. If you're into this, I think I might. Maybe I'll upload this one today. Who knows?
Hell
We'll
yeah.
see how that goes. All right, so yeah, that's it. I think we're done.
Cool.